Welcome to Drone Pilot MBA. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really thought-provoking article. It's by Tony Marino, who, as you know, produces Drone Pilot MBA. And it's called Honoring Charlie Kirk, Drones for Safer Events. Now, the article, it kind of anchors itself around a very tragic event, September 10th, 2025. That was when the conservative activist Charlie Kirk was fatally shot at Utah Valley University. And the big question Tony asked, the one we really want to unpack today is, well, given everything, why wasn't there a drone in the air?
Yeah, and it's about more than just that one terrible day, isn't it? What's so fascinating, and Tony Marino lays this out really well, is how this whole thing forces us to look hard at our current security methods. And, why we aren't using technology that's actually pretty accessible. The article, it really digs into the costs, the benefits, and the real world limits of using drones for security. So I guess our mission today is to pull out those key insights from Tony's analysis. We'll look at the case for drones in security, sure, but also the reasons they might not have stopped the shooting. And then importantly, what's the path forward? How do we actually get this tech into safety planning before something like this happens again?
Absolutely. And Tony gets right into the specifics of the incident. He points out Kirk had received death threats, multiple threats. That alone should have, raised its security level. And the attack itself, coming from a rooftop, about 200 yards away from the stage, that distance, that high ground, it just screams vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
The gaps that ground security can't easily cover.
Right.
But the part in Tony's article that really made me stop was his point about permissive conditions for drones. He highlights there was no TFR, no temporary flight restriction, which means basically the airspace up to 400 feet, Class D airspace, was open, legal for commercial drones.
Right, totally open.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The cost. It was surprisingly low, wasn't it?
Oh, incredibly low. I mean, Tony breaks it down. We're not talking about some super expensive, complex military drone here. He says a DJI Mini, a perfectly capable drone, is under $500.
Under $500.
Wow. And the Part 107 license you need, less than $200, and you can study for free. Even liability insurance, he figures, usually under $100 for something like this.
Okay.
He even suggests hiring a licensed pilot for the event might cost less than $100 an hour. So you'd add all that up. The article suggests a basic drone setup, drone insurance pilot for a few hours could have been under $1,000.
Under $1,000 for an event with known specific threats. That's pretty striking.
It really hits home, doesn't it? That disconnect. You've got this affordable, available tech, minimal red tape, really, and yet facing a credible threat, nothing. No drone. It suggests something deeper than just forgetting, maybe, like a gap in planning. Or maybe just resistance to new tools.
Institutional inertia, maybe?
Could be, but the article makes it clear. The technical hurdles, low. Financial hurdles, low. But still, no drone. It really makes you question how security planning happens, or maybe how it should happen now.
Right. And starting from that absence, Tony builds this really strong case for why drones need to be in the security mix. He emphasizes that they don't replace boots on the ground.
No, they supplement.
Exactly, they supplement. They give you that high perspective, cover those blind spots ground teams just physically can't. He lists 4 key advantages, and that make a lot of sense. First, enhanced situational awareness. Just picture it, a drone quietly flying over, giving live video of rooftops, perimeters, approaches.
Seeing things you just can't see from below.
Right. Spotting someone suspicious on a roof, maybe, or seeing entry points, eyes in the sky, literally. Second, deterrence. Just knowing a drone is up there watching, that can make an attacker think twice.
Absolutely. It changes the risk calculation for them.
Third, rapid response support. If something kicks off, that live feed, invaluable. Security can see exactly where to go, what's happening, much faster, more effective response.
Directing resources precisely.
And fourth, forensic documentation. Afterwards, that drone footage is solid evidence, shows exactly what happened, where, who moved where. Huge for investigation.
Undeniable proof.
So when you lay it out like that, Tony's question comes back. With these benefits and the low cost, why wasn't a drone used?
Yeah, connecting that to the bigger picture, these aren't just nice to haves, they're serious upgrades to security layers. They specifically cover vulnerabilities that, ground patrols just can't cover effectively, like that distant rooftop. A ground team can't be up there constantly. A drone potentially could. It fills those gaps. These are practical, real-world advantages.
But, okay, let's be balanced here, because Tony's article it doesn't just say drones are the answer.
Yeah.
He brings up the counter-argument, too. Why a drone, even if it had been there, might not have actually prevented the shooting. we need to look at those limitations too, right?
Absolutely. It's crucial. Avoids that trap of thinking tech is a magic wand. And the article lists, 6 key considerations?
Yeah, those points.
Okay, so first, and this is a big one, line of sight challenges. Drones see what their camera sees. That rooftop could have HVAC units, ledges, whatever. A shooter could hide behind something easily until the last second. You need the right angle, the right timing, and an operator actively looking, not just passively watching.
So just being up there isn't enough.
Not necessarily. Then there's coverage and endurance, those little DJI minis. Great drones, but the battery lasts, 20, maybe 30 minutes? For continuous coverage over hours, you need multiple drones, lots of batteries, multiple operators swapping them out constantly. One drone flying now and then leaves gaps.
Right, big gaps potentially.
Third, operational complexity. Flying a drone might be getting easier, but plugging it into a live, high-stress security operation, that's complex. You need trained people who aren't just pilots, but know surveillance, can talk instantly to ground teams, follow clear protocols. It's a whole system.
Not just a guy with a drone.
Exactly. Fourth, the risk of a false sense of security. Having a drone might make everyone feel safer, maybe leading them to relax on other things like ground patrols or checking credentials. Drones add a layer. They don't replace the others.
That's a subtle but important one. Complacency.
Yeah. Fifth, the basic shooter advantage. Let's say the drone does spot the sniper just before they fire. There's still a delay, right? Spot, identify, communicate, react. A prepared shooter still has that split-second advantage. Drones detect, they don't stop bullets.
Grim reality.
And finally, number 6 is institutional hesitation. This might be the biggest hurdle sometimes. Organizers, universities, security firms, they might worry about liability, privacy concerns, safety of flying over crowds. So they stick with what they know, the traditional methods, instead of trying something perceived as experimental, even if the tech is ready. Human factors.
Yeah, the nobody ever got fired for sticking with the old way kind of thinking.
It's something like that. It's a real barrier.
Okay, so those are some very real limitations. But bringing it back together, Tony Marino still argues pretty powerfully for the return on investment, the ROI. His bottom line is stark. Under $1,000 could have bought deterrence, better awareness, and that forensic evidence. He says the ROI, when you think about mitigating risk, potentially saving lives, it's enormous. What really makes that ROI case so strong here?
Well, I think it's the concept of the missed opportunity, as Tony frames it. Yes, there are limitations. Acknowledging them is vital. But that doesn't excuse doing nothing when a low-cost tool could have helped. Even if it didn't guarantee prevention, could it have increased deterrence? Could it have provided better real-time awareness? Almost certainly, yes. It highlights that security teams were effectively operating with blind spots that technology could have illuminated. And the lesson for the drone industry and for security planners is huge. The tech is only part of it. It needs solid integration, clear strategy, protocols. It's about building that smarter, layered defense.
Right. It's not just having the tool, it's knowing how and when to use it effectively as part of a bigger plan.
Precisely.
So looking ahead, Tony's article doesn't just look back, it maps out a path forward. It basically says security thinking has to evolve. Old methods aren't enough for modern threats. And he lays out a challenge, but also a big opportunity for the drone industry itself. He suggests 4 key actions. First, educate event organizers. Really show them with data how drones add value, how they're cost-effective, low risk, change minds.
Make the case concretely.
Second, train operators for security integration. Not just flying, but tactical surveillance, communicating with ground teams, understanding the security mission.
Thinking like part of the security team.
Third, develop multi-drone protocols. Figure out the logistics for continuous coverage, multiple drones, battery swaps, smooth handoffs, solve that endurance problem.
Address the practical limitations head on.
And finally, advocate for inclusion in security plans. Push for drones to be a standard consideration, especially when there are known threats. Make it normal, not novel.
Yeah, normalize it as a best practice.
It feels like an urgent call to action.
It absolutely is. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, Tony's really talking about a paradigm shift, isn't he? It's not just about drones, it's about fundamentally rethinking public safety for the 21st century. The big takeaway is that drones aren't just toys or tools for nice photos anymore. They have a critical, serious role in public safety. And his final message is powerful. It's not if drones can be used for security anymore. The tech is here. The question is, will leaders act? Will the industry step up? Or will we wait for another tragedy? It really leaves you thinking about prevention.
Wow.
That was definitely a deep dive into Tony Marino's article, Honoring Charlie Kirk, Drones for Safer Events. It certainly makes you think hard about the tools we already have, and maybe more importantly, how we get past just doing things the way they've always been done.
Absolutely. Tony's analysis gives us a really clear way to see both the potential, the upsides, and the real challenges. It definitely pushes us to think more proactively, more strategically about security in a world that's, well, constantly changing. We need solutions that evolve too.
Be sure to read the full article and much more at aerialnorthwest.com. Thanks for joining us, and keep on droning.